Hey, yo, whoa, that stopped right on the beat.
Good timing, Marcus. A nice little tune you got there.
A nice little jig. Coming home
You
to who
created
you
that.
are. Man, AI is wonderful. I'm
Just
looking forward to this new age of creation with creators and ah,
well,
coming home to who you are with Marcus and Mark.
music is just one of your many talents, isn't it?
You know, I like to think I arrange vibrations. That's what I say.
Arrange vibrations.
That's what words are. That's what visual art is. That's what dancing is. That's what any of this is.
Wow.
And that's the truth. And we are all creators, you and I, and we put together, we take apart to live in the world that we want to live in. And and now we've orchestrated this moment, or everything outside of us and in us has orchestrated this moment to come home to who you are, Mark.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Boom!
Great
It's wonderful.
to be diving into this next chapter, chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Got this in the mail earlier this week.
Looking good.
You got
Looking
yours.
good.
We have the new cover coming out. Looking forward to get this to the people. Chapter 6. Yeah. Would you like to set us up with the context, the title?
I can start. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this chapter is called "The Weight of a Father's Dream,"
A
and yeah, so Kenna has just had this very inspirational chat with Professor Amar, where the professor is seeing this possibility within Kenna to step up and contribute to leading these conversations within the university, these philosophical salons, as we call them.
mm-hmm.
To create space for fellow students to talk about the things that are important to them, and to really be able to uh, to be able to express deeper aspects of who they are and who they're becoming, and in addition to all the other good stuff that happens in a university. And Kenna is surprised. He doesn't see himself being able to do that. So it's a case where the professor is seeing something in Kenna that he's not able to recognize in himself yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's in this in between space, this reflective space of what does this all mean? Like, should I do this? Can I do this? Is it going to impact my studies, my engineering studies? What will my father think about of it? So he's sort of in this moment where a lot of things are um, blurry, I would say. Yeah.
Blurry. he it's it starts off with him in his dorm, right? Yes, this is a
Yeah.
conversation with his father on the phone, and he looks over and he sees an orange back book. And this has been one of the books that has been influential on in our book. He sees The Alchemist, and he talks about this journey. Well, we don't call it by name, but he says he sees this orange book of this shepherd that journeys out for his legend, his dream, only to understand. Well, I don't want to give. If you haven't read the book, go read the book. But then now he talks about journeying inwards into Kenna to find what the treasure is, and I, I like to think of our book as the reverse alchemist. We have our inner development and our outer development, and yeah,
So
and then he has a conversation.
he sees
Say
this
again.
as a sign. He sees, like, when he kind of notices the book on his desk, he kind of reads into it a bit as a sign, right? Or there's something here maybe happening, some parallel here.
Yeah, and then in the conversation with his father, he says this quote: "It's natural at your age to question things, but remember why you're at university. If you want to do this later in life," and then he pauses
Yeah.
and he lets him fit. Then they have this dialogue back and forth, talking about it's actually Kenna's inner dialogue, but now it's personified as his father. and there's a give and give and take. What's up? What are you gonna say?
Well, exactly. I think maybe just take one step back. That Kenna decides he's at this turning point, and he feels he needs to speak with his father because it's an important person in his life, and I think he still has this sense of like, if I'm going to make a big decision to invest time in these salons, I would like that kind of approval, a sense of approval, right? So he decides to pick up the phone, calls his father, and struggles through the conversation eventually to say like that he wants to do this deeper philosophical conversation, etc. And his
Mm,
father is pushing back, saying, no, that's not the focus. You should be really focusing on your studies. And he says something like, if you want to do this afterwards or in your spare time or whatever, um, that's for another time. And what I just found really striking in that is this this idea that personal development is sort of a nice to have. It's the cherry on
okay.
top, right? And we compartmentalize it. It's like, yeah, if we have time for it, if we have, if everything else is is needs to come first, and then you can go and think about life and purpose and meaning and all of these things, right? Rather than that being the basis and the starting point and the foundation, and you allow the rest of your life to sort of gravitate and revolve around that. And so I think it's a very
Mm,
different way of looking at it. And it feels like Ken is sort of stuck, right? He doesn't know how to express it, how to explain that to his father.
it feels like Ken is just being human, right? He's figuring out. Well, he's figuring out while he's doing what is his being, and you've been down that path. I've been down that path. Anybody who's had life experience been down that path. Um, you said something that's interesting. I never thought of this as Kenna looking for his father's approval.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
rather, he's sharing it with his father, and he's taking his insight because he does give some pushback, and he makes an argument. And I guess that's what it is being a young person or a
Hmm.
youth coming into your own. You're trying to individuate, and that's not necessary, but that natural tension of life
Mhm.
of how do you form your own voice by pushing back against the voice that you do trust and that you do look to insight, but learning to trust your own intuition. Hey,
Mm. Mhm.
yeah, that takes us on to our next topic, eh?
So,
The topic of this conversation. Go on.
so if it's not approval he's looking for, how would you describe it then?
Yeah, I would say he's looking for trusted insight, a trusted advisor, and I think that's what the best of us do, right? We surround ourselves with people whose vision we trust, who know they have our well-being. That's a part of trust. I trust your insight. We've worked together for a while, and I know that there's healthy pushback at times, and there are times when you have a point, and I don't even want to say acquiesce or concede, but it's like I respect also when you push back.
Mhm.
So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily approval, but it's like I trust your perspective,
Mhm.
and that's a healthy place in interdependence.
Mhm. And I'm just wondering because it's an important arc in the story, right? Do you
Mhm.
feel like he is already at that interdependent stage with his father, or
No,
is it kind of growing out of that dependent stage where it's the parent child relationship still, and that he's maturing out of it, and he's in the process of maturing out of that?
that that's the story. That's the story
Yeah,
arc. It's
yeah,
like when we're sitting here waiting, when will Kenna come into his own understanding?
yeah,
That's what the audience is doing.
yeah.
Um, a good story has tension.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and plus things are realized three times. They're realized in the back of your mind, then they're realized when you start to declare it with your mouth, and then it's realized when you actually see it being done. And you actually start to see it being done later on when Kenna at the climax. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
wait to see.
Yeah. No, it's a very fascinating exchange with the father. And what do you think of this idea of compartmentalizing personal development?
Explain that. What do you mean by
Well,
compartmental?
versus it being at the foundation of who we are, the decisions we take, how we go about choosing our subjects for university, the choices we make from a career point of view, that it comes from a deep understanding of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and versus we do what is expected of us or what society has told us is the path to success, and then we kind of keep the knowing ourselves, the development of ourselves as a as a hobby in a way, as something that we do because we see that a lot, right? People go to
Mm-hmm.
work and they put on their
Mm-hmm.
work face, or their work kind of, and then they leave work, and then they sort of transform into, I guess, a more natural state. And I
Hmm.
feel like the yearning is that there's no longer that divide, or that gap narrows more and more. That who we are at work is the same as who we are at home, right? And who we are at home is the same as who we are with our friends, and that there is this really common, grounded centeredness that shows up in all aspects of our life, right? I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're all yearning for, but it's not the way that we've been taught, right? It's not the way that, yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Uh, I hear you say taught. I just smiled because in my mind the word was conditioned. Um, that's why we say know thyself and you'll understand the secrets of gods and men. Or short is just know thyself. But the fullness is it's been said, and you'll understand the secrets of gods and men. Again, and that's what being at full potential is about. You're only at full potential if you know the fullness of yourself. Again, be, then do. I think we're going to come into a human understanding or human development where we start to understand our being, our connectedness. I absolutely agree with you. Sometimes in the I'll say it like this: in the economically developed part of the world, we have lost our understanding of who we are, our being. Our identity is wrapped up in our doing.
Hmm.
And it is kind of counterintuitive. It is kind of radical to actually come back to the concept of who are you?
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
that's what every story has been about from the beginning of time, with Lawrence of Arabia yelling out, "Who are you?" The reason we read stories is that we might understand ourselves. And it's understanding myself here as well as understanding Mark across on the other side. To hold space for both those perspectives and then see, okay, this is who I am. What do I want to create?
Yeah.
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 And it sounds very philosophical, but it also sounds very simple to me.
Yeah.
I
There's a
mean,
simplicity to it, isn't there? Yeah.
the difficulty comes in the doing. Yet, even that said, it becomes more easier when you start to find other doers like you who are in alignment with that, and you just it's not so much you're fighting against something, but rather you're fighting for the expression of yourself.
Yeah.
Not fighting for it, but you're just emerging.
And I'm wondering if this doing from being is becoming easier in a world where there is less and less certainty about, study well, get good grades, get a good job. make a good living, live a happy life. That story, right? That's a narrative that is part of our culture and part of how we've grown up. And I think that is that line of um, certainty. I can live my life in a certain way. It's sort of crumbling or it's falling apart. There's so much more uncertainty around what a career looks like and what stability looks like. And because of that greater level of uncertainty, does it maybe become easier for people to say, well, I might as well just be fully myself, and just trust that if I know my gifts, I know my talents, and I just focus on bringing that out, that things are going to, that I'm going to be able to find some path for myself in this uncertain future.
I think it's more nuanced than that. Yes and no. There are a lot of yeses in there. There are a lot of nos in there. The uncertainty. Well, first of all, my company is called Certain Future. The only certainty is change, and some people view that change as a threat. Some people view it as opportunity. There's a new change that's coming. That's unprecedented. We've not experienced before. And again, that's with the developed world. If you notice, there's a lower birth rate. And it's just because people have gotten comfortable. This is a longer conversation, but private equity has caused the resources to come up top without the care of other people. And when I say without the care of other people, caregiving, it takes resources. Being a parent takes resources. Being a teacher takes resources. Yet those who provide this care, they feel under-resourced. And that's the new problem of our next generation. Now we have AI to solve it. We also have new distribution models, be it the blockchain or be it, it's nuanced, like I said. Equity knows and it wants places to send money to. But then innovators, they don't feel resourced to actually, or don't know how to, they don't have the skills or they don't have the support to get it into front of the right people, or they've not been taught it. So like what is the new challenge of our age? That's what our book does. Our book is saying, hey, fix your not fix, but get to know your IDGs. How might you use that in greatest service to meet the SDGs? And when you get in that flow, that's, again, it's called currency because it needs and it wants to flow. And when I say currency, am I talking about financial currency? Am I talking about energy? Am I talking about love? The answer is yes. It needs to flow and it wants to flow. Yeah. In our natural conversations, I would leave a big pause here to see how that landed with you. I mean, on the podcast,
I think there's something about when a story, a narrative is starting to break down, no longer holds true, right? The study hard, get a good job, have a successful life, that storyline, when that starts to break down, it gives room for a new narratives to be formed, right? And I feel like we're in that period right now, and it's not that it's fully those new stories haven't been told yet, but they are emerging. And I do feel that part of it is this idea that start with a very good understanding of who you are and work on yourself, and trust that that's going to give rise to opportunities that you can't predict, that the mind can rationalize and figure out, right? But it's much more emergent in terms of how our lives will evolve and how we're going to be in the world. in the future. And I feel like that is a new narrative, and it's not one that is easy to point to, or there's not a lot of success stories, if you like. Um, but I find it fascinating that when one is starting to break down, a new one, it gives room for new ones to come through. And I think that's what we're also doing with this book, right? Is to tell a new story, open up a new story. The story I was told growing up
Mm.
from my father and always stuck with me is, when he was 16, 17, he wanted to go to art school,
Yes,
right? He
we
wanted
talked
to,
about this.
he wanted to be an artist, and he believed that he had the capacities to be a successful artist.
Hmm.
And so that was his dream. That's what he wanted to do. And his father talked him out of it, basically said, no, you should keep that as your hobby. Keep that, as a side thing. You can do it your whole life, but keep it as a side and go into business, go study business
Hmm.
and get into business. That's where the opportunities are. That's where the stability is. That's where you're going to be able to, lead a happy and successful life. And so he did that. And my father was able to keep his hobby fully alive throughout his whole life. But I think in the back of his mind, there's always that question, like, what if? What if I would have really gone for it fully? You know what I
But
mean?
him going for it fully was him fully expressing his artist side, no?
Yeah, yeah.
So he did go for it fully. In my view, it's just like,
I mean, fully as a you know to not keep it to the side, right? That's what I meant about compartmentalizing. It's a hobby,
mm,
right? So we categorize it as a hobby.
yeah.
It's sitting there at the side. You do that a few times a week, in the evenings, on the weekend. And so it's still alive, and it's still a way to channel your creativity. And so all of that is great. But
Mm,
what if you would have stepped into that space of going to art school, right? And creating your life around painting and creating art.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the difference.
You know, there's this guy named Stephen Cope. He wrote a book called The Great Work of Your Life. And in Buddhism, we call it Dharma. Um, it could be called, it's your path, it's who you are. And
Mhm.
that's what Robert Frost did. He said, I'm going to be a poet. So that's why he bought the farm. He quit being a teacher and he focused strictly on writing poetry. That's how Jim Carrey did it. He went into comedy. It takes, yeah, and that's where it comes down to either following your intuition or choosing the expectations of others. This is the story of life, right? And it's a good story. It's a great story when you know you're the main character and you're the audience doing it. Only you can say if it was a good life or not. Because I don't know, maybe your father thought he did go all in.
Yeah.
I guess only the individual can answer that, eh? Like if they know they did what they wanted to do.
Yes. And I think how we are brought up makes an influence. Imagine
Yeah,
if he had a father, and his father was operating from fully out of love and best intention, and really doing the best that he he could at that moment.
sure.
But imagine that you have a father who's supportive and says, yeah, if you feel that this is part of your dream and what you're here to do, I'm fully behind you. Like, do it. Let's go for it, right? um so I think there is something about how we are holding the young generation, whether it be the
Mm,
professors at school, the teachers, the parents. Are they projecting their fears or worldview onto their children, or are they holding that space for them, to fully realize who they are? to fully become who they are. And
Yeah.
so it's the, intention wise, it was absolutely pure, and they were doing the best. But I think the as my well, the way I'm trying to bring up my kids is more and more from you're in charge, right? You are,
Mhm.
it's your life, and I want you to follow whatever is coming through you, and don't worry about whether or not it has, quote unquote, a stable or a good prospect for making money and all of that. Don't
Mhm.
focus on that. Focus on where your passion lies, and everything else will sort of follow. So there's a level of trust that I have to be able to encourage my children, with that as well.
So I hear you. I hear you. Now, if I may share another perspective, not even share a different perspective along the same line, the word passion means pati, which means pain or suffering. That's where you get the passion of Christ. We've had this conversation before, yeah? In following your heart, following your own intuition, following your voice, you are going to run up against contention, stress, obstacles. I think everybody should follow their heart. There's no greater privilege than to be who you are. I think this current generation, and when I say this generation, a lot of those, again, in the economically developed part of the world, they don't know how to deal with the natural stresses of life. So, in that pursuit of expressing themselves, they fold underneath the first stressor. Um, Ideally, as educators, as parents, as caregivers, we teach them how to actively pursue stress, healthy stress, and do hard things, have grit. But I think if we don't actively do that at a young age, it will find them. Like
Sure,
conflict will find you because
sure.
that's how growth happens. Life wants
Yeah,
you to grow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not saying that this is the easy path, by no means, right?
I know you're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Well, that flew by again, didn't it?
we've had writing sessions that, yeah,
Are
I've
going
always
to,
appreciated our conversations because
yeah.
it does fly by. Time flies by when you're having fun. I'm looking forward to bringing others onto the podcast. I know Niels, I think he mentioned he would like to come, or and other
Yeah,
educators.
yeah, no, we need to do a little bit, I think, more to raise awareness. Like, it doesn't, we're going to keep doing this, obviously,
Sure.
because it's fun. But yeah, it would be great to have a few people join us. We can exchange messages and even bring you on the live call if you want. That's all possible. Um, so yeah, let's spread the news.
Okay.
And
Let's
you
bring
go.
people back home to who they are.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next week we'll be talking about right here,
So chapter 7, right?
failing forward.
Mm.
Yeah. Failure is necessary for human development. Do you agree? If so, how do you make failure support and serve your development? You had a wonderful talk about that on your LinkedIn
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much that can be, so many gifts that lie in quote unquote failure. Uh, we just have to have the capacity to see it, to,
To
grab
alchemize it.
it, right? Yeah. To recognize it, to
Yeah.
integrate it. And yeah, I think that's what's happening with Kenna, right? We've laughed a few times how in the first part of the book, it's just one failure after another, and it
Yeah.
keeps getting up again. And yeah, chapter 7 is when he comes to his clarity, I guess, right? That's the chapter where he comes to his clarity.
He fails again. He fails at
Yeah,
something that he thought he was good at.
yeah,
And Rosie comes with another poem. We'll share it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mark, this time has been wonderful. Once again, thank you. We're on chapter 7 out of 23.
Yeah. We'll be back
Making it bit by bit
next Friday.
next Friday. All right. Everybody else on the other side of this podcast, I'm welcoming you home from the inside out. And we're gonna figure out a sign off for this podcast. But
For
thank.
now, welcome home.
Hey, there we go. There we go. All right, everyone, be beautiful on the other side of the stream. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Peace.